In a courtroom moment no one saw coming, Princess Diana's sister, Lady Sarah McCorquodale, took the stand, and the silence that followed her words was deafening. With raw emotion and decades of guarded truth, she spoke of Queen Camilla's devastating role in Diana's downfall. "She didn't kill her, but she helped break her," Sarah said through tears. What unfolded wasn't just testimony. It was a reckoning that rocked the royal foundation to its core. Tears at the courtroom. On the morning of February 6, 2025, silence fell over the packed courtroom as Lady Sarah McCorquodale, the eldest sister of Princess Diana, took the witness stand. What followed wasn't just a legal moment. It was a national exhale, decades in the making. Sarah, now in her 70s, sat upright but visibly burdened. And when she opened her mouth, it was as if the room shifted. She began by referencing a 1995 letter Diana wrote to her solicitor, Lord Mishcon, in which she described the destabilizing presence of Camilla Parker Bowles. The letter, never before seen by the public, stated, "There is someone in my marriage who is not supposed to be there, but no one seems willing to remove her." Sarah then explained how this early paranoia, once dismissed by palace insiders, became impossible to ignore. "Diana felt surrounded," she said, "not by enemies, but by indifference." As she continued, Sarah grew more emotional. She described the way Diana's suspicions were later fueled by manipulations from BBC journalist Martin Bashir, who used forged bank records to suggest that Diana's staff were betraying her. Combined with Camilla's growing presence at royal events in 1994 and 1995, the paranoia only deepened. The court watched as Sarah paused, twice, to regain her composure. Witnesses said the courtroom froze as Sarah quoted Diana's now famous phrase, "There were 3 of us in this marriage." But this time, it wasn't a soundbite. It was a sister recalling whispered confessions, tearful phone calls, and sleepless nights. One official present told The Guardian, "It felt like Diana had walked into the room. There is someone in my marriage who is not supposed to be there, but no one seems willing to remove her." Diana, 1995. Letter to Lord Mishcon. Sarah's opening was not a courtroom performance. It was a reckoning. Behind the carefully worded statements were decades of buried pain, and what came next dug deeper. The world remembers Diana's November 20th, 1995 BBC Panorama interview. But Sarah reminded us that the real confession didn't happen on TV. It happened in private rooms, scribbled letters, and lonely corridors. Because Diana didn't just feel betrayed by a woman, she felt abandoned by a system. And the next chapter would reveal how deeply that betrayal ran. Camilla, as the crowded third, Lady Sarah's second segment of testimony, focused squarely on Camilla Parker Bowles. Not as a tabloid villain, but as a persistent presence Diana could never escape. Revisiting the infamous BBC interview, Sarah said Diana's "3 of us in this marriage" quote was not an exaggeration. It was an understatement. Diana had been saying this in private since 1989, Sarah revealed. "We just didn't listen." The testimony confirmed that Camilla and Prince Charles maintained an emotional and physical relationship during the late 1980s, even as Diana attempted to salvage their marriage. Sarah read a 1990 note in which Diana confessed, "She knows his schedule better than I do. I no longer know what I'm walking into." This quote, which had never before been published, stunned the courtroom with its vulnerability. Sarah shared how Diana would rearrange her diary around events Camilla might attend, even asking staff to confirm if Camilla was on guest lists. By 1992, Diana was emotionally exhausted. She began journaling her experiences in detail, including one entry where she described a royal event, where Charles appeared to seek out Camilla's gaze across the room. "She told me it felt like a ghost had come alive," Sarah said, voice breaking. Court evidence included an internal memo showing Camilla's increasing presence at Highgrove House in early 1993, often overlapping with Diana's scheduled absences. Sarah told the court, "It was deliberate, and Diana felt it." Emotional strain turned to despair as the marriage publicly collapsed. According to Sarah, Diana felt pushed out with polite smiles, while Camilla was ushered in without apology. "She knows his schedule better than I do. I no longer know what I'm walking into." Diana, private note, 1990. While the emotional damage was becoming clearer, it wasn't just Camilla's presence that crushed Diana. What came next was something darker: manipulated documents, fabricated paranoia, and the betrayal of trust by media figures who claimed to offer help. Lady Sarah's next portion of testimony took aim at Martin Bashir, revealing how lies planted by the press pushed Diana further into isolation. This wasn't tabloid drama, it was orchestrated deception, and it would trigger the unraveling of both Diana's public persona and private confidence. Forged documents and emotional warfare. The courtroom leaned in as Lady Sarah recounted one of the darkest twists in Diana's story: the Martin Bashir deception. She confirmed under oath that in 1995, Bashir forged documents, including fake bank statements, that suggested members of Diana's household were secretly on the payroll of MX or leaking to tabloids. These false documents were shown to Diana in private meetings, seeding a new wave of paranoia. Sarah said her brother, Earl Spencer, initially trusted Bashir and introduced him to Diana at Althorpe House in August 1995. Once Bashir gained Diana's trust, Sarah explained, he exploited her fear that no one in the royal household was truly on her side. She became convinced her friends were being paid to lie, Sarah said. It destroyed her final sense of safety. Diana's increasing paranoia, amplified by these forged documents, led her to fire several close staff members between October and November 1995. Sarah recalled a chilling moment when Diana called her and said, "Even the curtains feel like they're watching me now." The Panorama interview, which aired November 20th, was the culmination of this emotional breakdown. Not the cause, but the outlet. Sarah's final words in this segment hit like a hammer. "I do not claim Camilla plotted a crash, but I believe she helped create a reality where Diana felt unwanted, unprotected, and undone." The courtroom did not speak for nearly a full minute after she stepped down for a recess. What had once been speculation was now official record, and the world was watching. "Even the curtains feel like they're watching me now." Diana, phone call to Sarah, October 1995. Physical and psychological wear on Diana. By the end of 1994, Princess Diana was already emotionally strained, but Lady Sarah McCorquodale's testimony revealed just how far her sister had begun to unravel behind closed palace doors. In court on February 6, 2025, Sarah outlined a heartbreaking descent into physical and psychological exhaustion. The repeated presence of Camilla Parker Bowles at royal events and her growing closeness to Prince Charles acted not just as emotional pressure, but as psychological weight. Diana had long battled bulimia, with episodes beginning in 1981, shortly after her engagement. But according to Sarah, the eating disorder deepened significantly between 1992 and 1996, during the height of her marriage's breakdown. Diana would oscillate between long periods of isolation and manic public energy. Her diary was filled to the brim, Sarah said, because being alone was too painful. The more Camilla became visible in Charles's world, the more invisible Diana felt in her own. Sarah also described Diana's episodes of self-harm, telling the court that on one occasion in 1993, the princess cut herself with a small silver letter opener after reading a newspaper headline that hinted Camilla had been seen visiting Highgrove. Diana's mental health evaluations during this period, some conducted privately, others with palace doctors, revealed chronic anxiety, obsessive fears about public rejection, and what one psychiatrist described as severe emotional erosion due to perceived institutional gaslighting. And yet, in the middle of all this, Diana was also transforming into the people's princess. Sarah explained that her humanitarian work with AIDS patients, landmine victims, and mental health advocates wasn't just passion, it was self-defense. She needed to be needed, Sarah said, because she wasn't being loved. Diana's public sparkle masked a woman who, in her private writings, often described herself as fading from relevance before 40. She needed to be needed because she wasn't being loved. Lady Sarah McCorquodale, February 2025. As the court absorbed the emotional toll of Diana's decline, a chilling question lingered. Was this simply the byproduct of a painful divorce, or something far more deliberate? The next portion of Sarah's testimony tackled head-on what has haunted royal watchers for over 2 decades. The car crash in Paris remains one of the most debated moments in royal history. But Lady Sarah made it clear. Her mission wasn't to chase conspiracies, but to name the emotional betrayal that happened long before that final night. Conspiracy theories versus verified facts. As public interest in Diana's death surged again in 2025, Lady Sarah took the opportunity to address a topic that has followed her sister's memory since August 31, 1997, the persistent theory that her death was not an accident. On the stand, she dismissed claims made by Mohammed Al Fayed and echoed by millions, that Camilla or members of the royal family orchestrated Diana's murder. But her dismissal came with a twist. "I do not believe Camilla plotted a crash," Sarah said, "but I absolutely believe she plotted a marriage. And that marriage, unfolding in public without dignity, shattered my sister." This sentence echoed through the courtroom and hit headlines within the hour. According to Sarah, Diana's destruction didn't come from conspiracy. It came from being left unprotected, emotionally, psychologically, and institutionally. Sarah backed up her claim with facts from Operation Paget, 2006, which concluded that Henri Paul's intoxicated driving and paparazzi pursuit led to the crash in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. She referenced the 2008 inquest, which found unlawful killing but no conspiracy. And she cited the BBC's 2021 Dyson report, which confirmed that Martin Bashir used deceit to manipulate Diana into giving her explosive Panorama interview. But Sarah's focus wasn't legal, it was moral. She said that while the monarchy was cleared of criminal wrongdoing, they were never cleared of emotional negligence. She didn't die because of Camilla, Sarah clarified, but she suffered because of her. That distinction matters. It's not about proving murder. It's about naming pain. She didn't die because of Camilla, but she suffered because of her. That distinction matters. Lady Sarah McCorquodale, February 2025. After dismantling conspiracy with fact, Sarah's final turn focused on clarity, laying out a timeline of events that could no longer be seen in isolation. From forged documents to final farewells, each moment told part of a larger story. Because if emotional damage cannot be prosecuted, it can at least be recorded. And what came next in her testimony was the history no royal archive had ever catalogued, mapped not by power or protocol, but by what Diana truly endured across a decade. Timeline of key events. Sarah McCorquodale didn't just speak from memory, she spoke from records, letters, and first-hand observation. Her final presentation to the court was a meticulous timeline spanning 1995 to 2025, highlighting how Diana's downfall was a slow-motion tragedy marked by both silence and sabotage. Each year was more than a number. It was a warning ignored. She began in 1995, the year Martin Bashir's forged documents led to the now infamous Panorama interview on November 20th. That same month, Diana confided to Sarah that she no longer believed she had allies inside the palace. By August 1996, her divorce from Charles was finalized. Sarah recalled the irony. Camilla's name was never once spoken in court, even though her shadow loomed over every session. In 1997, the tragedy struck. Diana died in Paris on August 31st, and Sarah said her grief was doubled by what followed. "We spent years chasing justice in the wrong direction," she said. "We should have been looking inward, not outward." Operation Paget, 2004 to 2006, answered legal questions, but none of the emotional ones. The BBC's Dyson report in 2021 helped, but still didn't account for what Camilla's unspoken role had cost Diana privately. And finally, in 2025, Sarah returned to the witness box, not for revenge, but for clarity. "This is not about punishing Camilla," she said. "It's about preventing silence from winning. Diana never got to give a final word. So now, I am giving it for her. This is not about punishing Camilla. It's about preventing silence from winning." Lady Sarah McCorquodale, February 2025. Reactions from William and Harry. When Lady Sarah McCorquodale stepped down from the witness stand on February 6, 2025, the impact was instant, but the reactions from her nephews, Prince William and Prince Harry, weren't revealed until the following morning. For two men shaped by grief, the courtroom became more than a legal venue. It became a crucible of memory, loyalty, and unspoken pain. A palace source confirmed that Prince William received a full transcript of Sarah's testimony within hours. Though he released no public statement, he reportedly phoned Sarah the next day. According to a close friend of the family, William's voice cracked when he said, "You said what I couldn't say." That phrase, brief but powerful, underscored the internal tension he's lived with for over 25 years, balancing royal restraint against personal anguish. Harry's reaction, though more vocal, echoed the same raw sentiment. In Spare 2023, he had already called Queen Camilla dangerous and accused her of trading his mother's image for rehabilitation. After Sarah's testimony, a representative for Harry and Meghan confirmed he'd contacted his aunt. "She spoke the truth. At least now the silence has broken," Harry reportedly told her. In Los Angeles, where he lives with Meghan and their children, Harry was seen visiting a veterans charity just hours later, his face solemn, avoiding questions. What made these reactions so telling wasn't the contrast, but the convergence. For once, William and Harry were united, not just as princes, but as sons. Both of them, shaped by Diana's death in 1997, found their mother's voice again, through her sister. "You said what I couldn't say," Prince William to Lady Sarah, February 2025. As the royal brothers quietly processed the testimony, the world erupted. Hashtags, opinion polls, and newspaper editorials turned Sarah's voice into a tidal wave. It wasn't just the royals reacting, it was the public, reclaiming Diana's legacy, one memory at a time. But as support swelled, so did pressure. Because the truth, once spoken, can't be ignored. And as the court of public opinion opened, people didn't just want justice, They wanted acknowledgement. And now the monarchy would have to decide: remain silent or respond. Public pulse and media reactions. By February 9, 2025, just 3 days after Sarah's testimony, the hashtag #HadTruth for Diana had crossed 1.3 million mentions across Twitter, X, TikTok, and Instagram. Clips of Sarah's trembling words, especially her phrase, "She suffered because of Camilla," were remixed with archival footage of Diana walking through landmine fields, hugging children, and smiling through pain. For many, it wasn't just testimony, it was vindication. Mainstream media rushed to respond. The Times called Sarah's words an emotional eulogy disguised as evidence. The Guardian labeled it the most powerful moment in royal court history since Diana's own Panorama interview in 1995. Even American outlets weighed in. Vogue, Time, and CBS News published retrospectives on Diana's mental health decline from 1992–1997. The BBC, though criticized for its past role, issued a rare editorial acknowledging their ethical failures in pursuit of access. Polling reflected the shift. A YouGov survey conducted on February 10th showed 60% of Britons now believed Queen Camilla had contributed to Diana's emotional deterioration, even if unintentionally. Another 41% said they would support the monarchy more if it acknowledged past emotional failings. The data, combined with the online emotion, sent ripples through Clarence House and Buckingham Palace. But perhaps the most powerful reactions came from the public. Letters began arriving again at Kensington Palace, a phenomenon not seen since Diana's funeral in 1997. Outside Althorp House, hundreds left flowers. "It feels like she's finally being heard," one woman told Sky News. For a generation who'd never met her, and another who never stopped mourning, Sarah had reopened a channel long sealed shut by protocol. "It feels like she's finally being heard." Sky News interviewee, February 2025. With a public this engaged, ignoring the storm was no longer an option. And behind palace gates, aides scrambled, not for damage control, but for direction. What should be said? Should anything be said at all? It wasn't just Camilla's name now, it was the Crown's conscience. Because while public opinion is fluid, truth, once spoken on record, is permanent. And the monarchy had reached a moment it rarely faces, to choose not between dignity and shame, but between silence and humanity. Implications for the monarchy. The reverberations of Sarah's testimony reached deep into the monarchy's core. According to the Sunday Telegraph, top royal advisors held 3 internal briefings between February 8th and 12th, focused solely on the fallout. The challenge wasn't legal. There would be no lawsuits or prosecutions. The challenge was existential. How could an institution built on silence navigate an era suddenly obsessed with emotional truth? Senior sources confirmed that King Charles III was visibly shaken by the global reaction. Although he has long maintained private regret over his failed marriage to Diana, Sarah's public framing of Camilla as a silent aggressor threatened the careful image Charles had rebuilt since 2005 when he officially married Camilla. Aides admitted that palace strategies hadn't prepared for this kind of public relitigation of the past. Internally, discussions turned toward how to address emotional abuse within high-profile marriages, without undermining the institution. One idea floated was a royal wellness code for future heirs, focused on emotional literacy, relationship boundaries, and public accountability. Another involved a possible speech by Queen Camilla, a carefully worded acknowledgement of Diana's pain without accepting personal guilt. Behind the scenes, palace insiders were reportedly split. Some feared that any acknowledgement would only fuel media scrutiny. Others believed this was a chance for modernization, a way to connect the monarchy with a public craving empathy. As one royal source put it, if we're asking people to believe in the crown, they must first believe we are capable of reflection. If we're asking people to believe in the crown, they must first believe we are capable of reflection. Palace Insider, February 2025. And so, the House of Windsor found itself in unfamiliar territory, not a constitutional crisis, but a human one. What began with a sister's testimony had sparked a national dialogue. Not about power, but about pain. Not about scandal, but about silence. And as the inquiry announced its next hearing, focused entirely on emotional harm inside royal marriages, one truth was clear. This wasn't about the past anymore. It was about the legacy left behind, and the legacy still being written. What comes next? On February 12, 2025, the inquiry confirmed a second courtroom session to begin in late April 2025, focused entirely on emotional harm within high-profile marriages, especially those under royal scrutiny. This next phase will explore whether prolonged emotional neglect can be officially recognized as institutional complicity, even if no crimes were committed. Meanwhile, palace insiders say Queen Camilla is considering a humanizing statement, possibly published through a trusted journalist rather than delivered in person. Language is being carefully vetted. Early drafts, according to leaks, include phrases like regret over past suffering and shared pain across decades. It is not yet clear if she will reference Diana by name, but the question everyone is now asking, is reconciliation possible? A source close to Prince William confirmed he has discussed with Prince Harry the idea of relaunching the Princess Diana Memorial Fund, paused in 2012, as a joint mental health initiative. Talks are tentative, but if it happens, it would mark the brothers' first public collaboration since the Queen's funeral in 2022. As for Lady Sarah, she left court with no fanfare. But before exiting, she turned to reporters and delivered the quiet line that now defines this entire saga. This was never about revenge. This was about legacy for my sister and for those who suffer in royal silence. Diana may have died in 1997, but in 2025, her voice spoke louder than ever. This was never about revenge. This was about legacy for my sister and for those who suffer in royal silence. Lady Sarah McCorquodale, February 2025. As Lady Sarah walked out of court, the world finally heard what Diana never got to say. Queen Camilla's past, once buried in protocol, was now etched in public memory. The monarchy may survive this moment, but it will never be the same. Because this wasn't about scandal. It was about truth, pain, and legacy. And now, after decades of whispers, Diana's voice, through her sister, has shaken the very walls of the crown.